Smelly shoes and socks, shock sisters.
Smelly shoes and socks, smell
Smell like shading socks.
Smelly shoes and socks, shock sisters.
Shoes and socks, shock whatever.
Smelly shoes and shoes stock sisters. Smelly shoes and shoes stock sisters.
Mary shoes and socks as
Tena
hata ujinga hata usinilete.
smelly socks and shoes, shock sisters.
Smelly socks and shoes, shock sisters.
3 times.
Smelly socks and shoes, sisters. Smelly smelly
Socks and
and shoes, scare sisters.
Shocks.
Shock sisters.
3 times.
Smelly socks and shoes, scare sisters. Smelly
Shocks.
shock sisters.
And now say it a little bit faster.
Smelly shoes and socks, shock sisters.
Faster.
Smelly socks and shoes, shock sisters. Smelly shoes and socks, shock sisters.
Smelly shoes and socks, shock sisters.
Smelly shoes and socks, sisters.
No, smelly shoes and socks, shock sisters.
Smelly shoes and smelly shoes and smelly shoes and socks, sisters.
I'll repeat one more time. Smelly shoes and socks, shock sisters.
Smelly shoes and socks, sisters.
One more time.
Smelly shoes and socks, sisters. Smelly shoes and socks, pardon?
Smelly shoes and socks, shock sisters.
Smelly shoes and socks, shock sisters. Smelly shoes and socks, shock sisters.
Smelly shoes and socks, shock sisters.
Oh, shock.
Shocks. 2
Okay.
times.
Smelly shoes and socks, shock sisters.
2 times.
Smelly shoes and socks, shock whatever.
Smelly socks and shoes, shock sisters.
Smelly socks and shoes, shock sisters.
3 times.
Smelly socks and shoes, sisters. Smelly smelly
Socks and
and shoes, scare sisters.
Shocks.
Shock sisters.
3 times.
Smelly socks and shoes, scare sisters. Smelly
Shocks.
shock sisters.
And now say it a little bit faster.
Smelly shoes and socks, shock sisters.
Faster.
Smelly socks and shoes, shock sisters. Smelly shoes and socks, scare shock sisters.
Smelly shoes and socks, shock sisters.
Smell like shading socks.
Smelly shoes and socks, shock sisters.
Smell like shading socks.
Come closer. Smelly shoes and socks, shock sisters.
Smell like shoes and socks, shorts.
Smelly shoes and socks, shock sisters.
Smell like shoes and short socks. No, man.
Thank you so much. Smelly shoes and socks.
Mary
Shock
shoes
sisters.
and socks.
Smelly shoes and socks, shock sisters. Maratat.
Mary shoes and socks as
Tena
hata ujinga hata usinilete.
smelly shoes and socks, shock sisters.
Smelly shoes and socks. sorry. Come again.
Smelly shoes and socks, shock sisters. 3
Smelly
times.
shoes and socks, shock sisters.
3 times.
Smelly shoes and socks, shock sisters. Smelly shoes and socks, shock sisters.
Smelly shoes and socks, shock sisters.
Ooh, smelly shoes and socks, sisters.
And now let's go.
Smelly shoes and socks, shock sisters.
What's
Smelly
more?
shoes and socks, shock sisters.
And you, smelly shoes and socks, shock sisters.
Smelly shoes, shock sisters. Thank you.
One more time.
Smelly shoes and socks, shock sisters. Smelly shoes and socks, shock sisters.
Smelly shoes and socks. Shock sisters.
Ooh, smelly shoes and socks. Shock sisters.
Now let's go.
Smelly shoes and socks, shock sisters.
What's
Smelly
more?
shoes and socks, shock sisters.
And you smelly shoes and socks, shock sisters.
Smelly shoes, shock sisters. Thank you.
One more time.
Smelly shoes and socks, shock sisters. Smelly shoes and socks, shock sisters.
Okay. Smelly socks and shoes, shock sisters.
Let me try this at bit once. Smelly shocks and shoes. Smelly shocks and shoes.
Smelly socks and shoes, shock sisters.
Smelly shocks and shoes. Smelly shocks and shoes.
Shock sisters. Smelly socks and shoes, shock sisters.
Shrubbing.
Okay, smelly shoes and socks, shock sisters.
Smelly shoes and socks, shock sisters.
Smelly shoes and socks, shock sisters.
Smelly shoes and socks,
One more time.
Smelly shoes and socks, shock sisters.
One more time.
Smelly shoes and socks, shock sisters.
Smelly socks and shoes, shock sisters. Three times.
Smelly socks and shoes, shock sisters.
Yeah, add your speed and then 2 times.
Okay. Smelly socks and shoes. It was smelly
Smelly
socks.
shocks.
Smelly
Smelly socks and shoes, shock sisters.
smelly socks and shoes, shock sisters.
Yeah.
Smelly socks and shoes, shock sisters. Smelly socks and shoes, shock sisters. Smelly socks and shoes, shock sisters.
Yo, today I'm here with
Influencer.
influencer.
Yeah.
Now, influencer, I have a tongue twister that I would like you to try, okay?
Yeah.
Okay, now the tongue twister goes like this, Smelly socks and shoes, shock sisters. I want you to do that 3 times.
Sorry?
Smelly socks and shoes, shock sisters.
Smelly socks and shoe talk twisters. Smelly socks. Pardon.
Smelly socks and shoes, shock sisters.
Smelly shoes and shoes stock sisters. Smelly shoes and shoes stock sisters.
Hello, what's your name?
I'm Rita.
Richa. Now, Richa, today I have a tongue twister that I would like you to try it out.
Niambie.
And the tongue twister goes like this, Smelly socks and shoes, shock sisters.
Rudia kwanza.
Smelly socks and shoes, shock sisters.
Smelly shoes and socks, shock sisters.
I now say it. Smelly socks and shoes, shock sisters. And you say it faster.
Rudia tena.
Smelly socks and shoes, shock sisters.
Smelly shoes and socks, shock sisters.
Smelly socks and shoes.
Smelly socks and shoes, shock sisters.
Now say it faster.
Smelly socks and shoes, shock sisters.
One more time.
Smelly shoes and socks, shock sisters.
Okay, now say this one, Brayo. Smelly socks and shoes, shock sisters. Smelly socks and shoes, shock sisters.
Smelly socks and shoes, shock sisters.
One more time.
One more time.
Smelly socks and shoes, shock sisters. 3 times.
Smelly
Smelly socks and shoes, shock sisters.
hiyo ni ngumu.
Smelly socks and shoes, shock sisters. Smelly socks and shoes, shock sisters.
Smelly shocks and shoes, shock sisters.
Again.
Smelly shocks and shoes, shock sisters.